My name is Sigita Struberga. I represent Latvian Transatlantic Organization and Organization Women for Security. And I'm happy to say and proud to say that I am also Visegrad Insight Fellow, which has created a lot of opportunities to meet a wonderful network of researchers. And I'm happy to join this podcast again in capacity of this wonderful community of Visegrad Insight experts.
Welcome to the Visegrad Insight podcast.
We bring you global experts on the future of democracy, security, and economy.
The leading voices from Central Europe and on Central Europe.
Hosted by editors of Visegrad Insight.
Powered by Respublika Foundation from Warsaw, Poland.
It's Tuesday, 17th of February. My name is Wojciech Przybylski and I'm sitting online with Sigita Struberga from the Latvian Transatlantic Organisation and also professor of security and defense studies, lecturing across Europe, both in Latvia and in Spain, a number of other places, on the question of today. Question number one today, I would say, is definitely defense and security in Europe. And we pick up this topic also because the Munich Security Conference that concluded over the weekend has brought some important highlights to the conversation and to the analysis, perhaps the political analysis of the place we are in. I wanted to first ask you, Sigita, how closely you were observing the statements, what is your reading about where we are as a Euro-Atlantic community, Europe more specifically, in the preparation of what's coming ahead of us in terms of challenges, military and defense challenges that you are analyzing and you're following and you're building up your advocacy on those points on nearly ongoing. Sigita.
Wojtek, first of all, thank you very much for having me, and I will gladly share some of points I have, I guess, personally and view from Baltics, definitely. So if we look back on Munich Security Conference, the very message of the conference this year is that the global order, global liberal order, is not just eroding, it's being demolished, diminished, you might call however you want. And basically it was included also in several speeches, of course. But also there was a constructive element. So there was an offer on the table. And Marco Rubio, in his speech, was very clear that we shouldn't rely anymore on liberal world order principles, including the cooperation based on, some kind of multilateral joint goodwill, etc. No, we have already entered the era when we are in multipolar world where we have to reformulate our foreign policies according to logic of national interests, which always has been, of course. But somehow Europeans have forgotten this kind of even rhetorics, or I might say, when you asked what should Europe be prepared, so Europe is preparing already for years and years when we are going to do instead of preparing, or when we are going to act instead of strategic planning. We need to act, and action can follow only after very clear formulation of national interest. And in this sense, it does not mean that we have to forget about NATO or EU. We just have to reformulate and do. And by the way, looking on what Macron and Merz said, especially Merz, it was very much about action already. And I must say that especially if we look on Merz speeches in wider context, like, for example, shortly before Munich, he was in Brussels Forum. And in Brussels, he was very clear with very practical solutions including reviewing our restrictions on digital environment, our technological solutions in Europe, etc. Very practical in order to build up European economy, which is key for building strategic autonomy and also capabilities. Without economy, we can do that. It will be impossible. So, and if you do those three steps, it is about action. So we just need to do it. And also during this week, this initiative of Merz and Macron to discuss nukes is another very clear action. The question is, who is going to be a European leader then? It seems that internally, of course, we can leave this approach of having multilateral formats, having EU goodwill, speaking of human rights, etc. But globally, Europe has to be geopolitical actor, and it means that there should be one clear leader with a clear mandate. And in this case, I would say that most likely it will be national leader who can get this mandate and who will be listened globally. So this is what we are facing at the moment. This is the way, from my perspective, we have to speak.
I think you open a number of topics. We can have conversations over numerous episodes of this podcast and further on in the discussions that both not only try to understand what's going on, but also recommend the due course of action. One of the recommended course of action that appeared on the sidelines of the Munich conference was an article, an op-ed written by a German and a British general, both the chiefs of the military, chief of staff. This is Richard Knighton, who is he's a Marshal, Sir Richard Knighton, UK chief of the defense, and the defense staff general Carsten Breuer, who is a German respective chief of defense. And now they call for making the most of the preparations in terms of, as you said, economical industrial output to be ready to put on the table, especially from the point of view of these two most potent economies and military organizations, which countries also are, as Germany and United Kingdom, because what they recognize is a perspective of a long war effort that Russia is preparing for and has been relentless in making every effort to scale up preparations beyond what is actually and what could be needed for the war effort in Ukraine. Do you think that they hit the right tone? They write that they are asking for rearmament without warmongering. And at the same time, they hit the tone, this is a moral obligation. This is, they put it in the coating of values, probably not by coincidence. These two nations, do you see them doing enough already? You hinted at some of the German plans and doing this time things in a way that it does not produce or overproduce the imbalance of power, which in the past, when nation states have taken up this effort, was disastrous for Europe.
At this very stage, we need this type of approach, which was described in the article you mentioned. Otherwise, we have already this balance, and it's going to continue to rise if there will be no strong actions. And here I must say that there are, on one hand, their opinion is like you can sign under it for 100%. But at the same time, political realities might be challenging, especially, for example, in Britain, taking into consideration political context, they have internal political issues, right? So it's going to be challenging, but these are steps which need to be done. I must say that at very moment, we can congratulate Germany, not only for steps which are taken, but like, for example, plans to have have offensive cyber operations, to build up offensive skills of cyber operations, which means legislative change, etc. And seems that Germany is ready. And this is what also Merz has articulated already several times, that strategic approach of Germany is basically changing. Strategic culture of Germany in a way is changing. And this is crucial. At the same time, none of this type of articles or, let's say, political announcements from Europeans do not at the moment include, they don't include will to split from United States at all. So it means about being responsible strategic partner and take care of own security. And this is what we have slept for so many years, relying only on partners' goodwill. And somehow I think these articles are taking us back to the very understanding which we missed. So partnership does not mean being parasite on someone. Partnership means sharing, and sharing on voluntary basis. But if your partner does not want to share everything with you, that does not mean that your partner is splitting with you. And that's why I would see this type of invitations to build up our capabilities more as part of really building up us let's say responsible partner and strong partner, which can stand for European strategic autonomy if needed, and if not, being ready to stand together with states against different type of threats we are going to face, and the complexity of threats is just increasing. And in this case, without what was mentioned about building capabilities, we will not be able to stand.
Hi, if you're enjoying this episode, why not subscribe to Visegrad Insight? This gives you access to all our latest content online, as well as to our live and online events. You can use our special promo code for Visegrad Insight podcast listeners to get 35% off. Just go to visegradinsight.eu, choose a yearly subscription, and apply code Visegrad35. And now, back to the podcast.
Now, let's take a specifically Central Eastern European perspective. There is much talk, there is a waking up, a slow waking up, especially if you take the position and the perspective coming from Riga, from Tallinn, from Vilnius, or from Warsaw, of our Western mighty partners or potentially mighty partners. But the countries that I just mentioned, the capitals which lead the direction in the countries of the Baltic states and Poland, some others, Czech Republic, Romania, are notable also in the eastern flank context. They've been already putting quite a lot of effort in ramping up our defenses. I wanted to ask you about this particular perspective of Central Eastern Europeans, and speaking of your case individually, Latvia perhaps, to what extent Latvians are now reassured by the development. In what sense they are also preparing and doing whatever they can to make sure there is no war, hot war between Russia and NATO. In what way could you maybe illustrate the effort that is ongoing?
So first of all, in order to reassure Russia that the costs will be bigger than the benefits, means to be prepared. And this is very clear here in Baltics. And I believe we share this view with Poland as well. At the same time, sometimes I feel curious when some politicians or experts say that we are next leaders or we are leaders. So in terms of Poland, taking in consideration economic capacity, we can speak of leadership. In terms of Baltics, we can speak about moral leadership, probably, indeed. We can speak of readiness to do everything we can. Yes, I do agree, and I will elaborate on this a bit, but we can't really speak about European leadership. This is how it doesn't work in the world of geopolitics. So we will not become bigger than we are. So basically, that's why, of course, for us, it is important to take responsibility for building our resilience. And this is what not only politicians in here are ready, but also societies in general. And if we could take leadership, then we can take leadership as role models, for example, of societal resilience building. If we look on how society is mobilized at the moment, we can see that, first of all, we work on schools on educational level. There is work on communities level. There is work on businesses. So more and more middle and smaller enterprises are preparing themselves to different type of crisis. The sense of responsibility is rising for the state defense or total defense approach, which is extremely important when we think in categories of resilience or overall preparedness. But also when we look on the other homeworks which Baltics are doing, it is building the borders. We have managed to do it on building air defense. We are working on that, and you can list and list, so you can really see how much has been done. Of course, there is a lot of things needed to be done still, but if you look on the progress, so you can really measure it. And by the way, if there is something which we need to speak more, is about measurable results, not strategic visions, not goodwill, not of communities of goodwill, or however you want. We have to speak of measurable results. This is what can convince not only Russia's aggressor, but also our partners.
So by measurable results, you mean the outputs of the production, not the potential of the production. That speaks volume, of course. I mean, I look with admiration on the Baltics, and I do agree with you that the Baltic states in principle have delivered since early days of the invasion, and even before, they delivered the attitude that was missing in many other capitals, and especially in the institutions of Euro-Atlantic space, both the EU and NATO. They were, and you are, the first responders to the challenge. Now, in terms of what you just described as societal resilience, that is also a model that we see clearly, and also political leadership that the Baltics are delivering in the EU. Kubilius from Lithuania, you have top leadership, including a Latvian commissioner, although he's in another portfolio, not defense and foreign policy, but on the economic side, his perspective is also reinforcing the necessary to prepare. And the societal resilience, meaning the preparations of a society, including also military preparations, mobilizing the society. These are all great examples. But I wonder now how you look at the level that Germany actually delivers, because we talked about promises, we talked about the direction, but we heard already Zeitenwende promise in 2022. Where, or to what extent, Baltics, Latvia in particular, is reassured by what Germany is doing and not promising?
At very this moment, Baltics feel reassured regarding Germany. I believe that this is shared understanding in here, taking in consideration the progress in a way of thinking. This is what you mentioned. This is fundamental for any other practical means. Of course, we can speak in terms of some kind of critique, and we can find that here or there the speed is not as fast as it is needed. But at the same time, I think that at the very moment, the progress is there. At the same time, what would worry me more is maybe not that much the speed in this case, but rather the potential competition between older European countries, if we might call so, and the newcomers. And we are not newcomers anymore, but still this kind of potential competition in terms of military production. You hear it sometimes in conversations, you read it in between lines, and I think this potentially in longer term can be issue we will need to solve. And then we need this dialogue between countries like Germany and Baltics, how we complement. And by the way, Rheinmetall's activities here in Latvia is the one which reassure us, and it is also example of complementing, but it's those examples are not sufficient yet.
Yeah, not long ago we have shown in one of our infographs next to the weekly outlook how much these countries are benefiting from the SAFE program that is also balancing, to some extent, the military spending and the production that is ongoing, especially that the SAFE mechanism is distributed predominantly among the Central Eastern European countries. And Poland, yes, has received over 40 billion of euro for this kind of production. That is also in many cases, it's a collaborated production with partners, including the Baltics. Latvia is at the level of 3.5 billion, Lithuania twice that much, Estonia 2.3. For the sizes of the economy, it also, we need to take this into a certain proportion of what is meaningful input and what is also reasonable input. Judging on the output. Do you believe that the SAFE mechanism is maybe a way forward, and there will be further European acts of adding money for production, military production, that will be at the same time sort of a balancing act? So to avoid the future problem, is that how we should read also this European component in the defense production next to the nation state's own individual action?
I think yes, indeed, it helps, and also, as I mentioned, nation states' logic is for not really internally for European Union, right? If we may say so, but rather externally. While I really think that this kind of balancing acts help, but also the logic of the military helps. So basically, you need certain productions in front lines. And then if you look in the map, you clearly see where the front lines are, and this logic also helps, of course, and that's why we can see not only this type of formats as SAFE, but also the way of conversation and thinking, which not always is included in the logic of EU some kind of programs. At the same time, we need to think also of the factors which are not facilitating this type of tendencies. And of course, it's business logic, it's income logic, which creates competition. That's why the future of this balancing is not going to be rosy or discussions only friendly. We hear already about competition in a way that the countries are looking for maneuvers, and especially businesses are looking for maneuvers.
And that's all from this week's episode of the Visegrad Insight podcast, bringing you the leading voices from Central Europe and on Central Europe.
Make sure to subscribe, and we'll be in touch next week.